Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Heretic Hammer Podcast. I'm your host, Marshall, and this is my co-host, Dylan.
Hello, hello.
And Dylan, what time is it?
Well, looking at my clock, it appears to be about, somewhere around 6 p.m. our time. But if I look into the sky, what is that? I see something in the atmosphere rapidly approaching us at intense speed. It almost looks like some sort of a giant asteroid. But no, it's another episode of Mobile Suit Gundam, Dylan's Counterattack.
And it's the most titular of episodes.
It's here. It's finally time. After a whopping 4 episodes,
we hit the meta. Just like the asteroid is about to hit the Earth.
After this, we're done. We don't have to do any more episodes now because we've hit the titular moment.
That's untrue. Anyway.
Wing, get out of here. Iron-blooded orphans.
Who needs Wing in its 30th anniversary? Iron-blooded orphans is going to be a tough one. I'm going to see what I have to see about that one.
At the time of this recording,
is it on Gundam Info?
There was a Gundam Wing animation that was released in conjunction with Wing's 30th anniversary, and I demanded to Marshall that he needed to watch it so that we could talk about it at least briefly, because Marshall has expressed on this podcast his previous knowledge with Wing, and I thought it would be nice to kind of check in and be like, hey, how cool was that? Because that was pretty sick.
Hey, you're old is what it told me.
Congrats on being old.
Yes. It was cool to see. I mean, it was really cool to see, especially like a very just like high definition, like really, like creating a very modern look to Gundam Wing. And I was semi-hopeful watching it that there was going to be like remastered whatever. But no, it was just the animation itself. I thought it was like an announcement. I thought that was why you wanted me to watch it, because they like announced something. But nevertheless, it was cool, because I mean, it was just like, it was especially because like they did it. They made the quick battle animation in it, not in the like 3D G-Quix style. Like they did it very old school. Mm-hmm. Which takes way more time than they're given nowadays. Good old anime industry. How it's changed.
It's changed so much, and simultaneously so little.
Yeah, I know.
I will say, because you had asked, and I told you outright, I was like, this doesn't mean that there's like a new series or anything coming. What is happening is that Mobile Suit Gundam Wing Endless Waltz is going to have a theatrical re-release both in Japan and in America.
Ooh.
So if you're somebody that's super into Endless Waltz, which we will eventually cover on this podcast here, great news. It is scheduled, I think, for like the fall.
All right. It gives me enough time.
Theatrical re-releases, so
gives me enough time.
Field trip.
Hell yeah, brother! Let's do it.
That would honestly be sick if we
should be able to get through. I mean, should be able to get through Wing. So.
Yeah.
I think so. I think I need to get through Wing before that, but we'll regardless.
For sure.
We'll inevitably sort out our future Gundam plans at some point. They won't all just be like show recaps.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, today is a movie recap. And neither will
this one.
Yeah, that's right.
I was just going to say, this one won't either because it's a movie recap.
That's right. So yes, as we mentioned, it is the titular episode. We're doing Char'S Counterattack.
That's right. Today's episode, Char'S Counterattack.
Yes.
So satisfying to see that on the screen now.
Avid viewers may be like, hey, you didn't talk about Zeta. And the answer is...
Very true.
And the answer to that is, I don't have Crunchyroll, nor do I plan on it. I don't like Crunchyroll. Yep. Anyway...
We gotta work out how we are going to approach Zeta when that time comes.
Yeah.
Also, the other
it
thing
won't
that
be
happened
forever.
Is that,
it's just it is what it is.
No, we will get to it. But also the other funny thing about this, it wasn't just that. It was also, if I remember correctly, you watched this not knowing that it technically came after the events of Zeta.
Correct. That was the other thing.
Yeah.
Is I didn't know. I forgot 100%. I didn't reference the timeline before I just clicked next on Netflix.
Text.
Yeah. Before to realize, oh wait, in your timeline where you had the the UC timeline, Char'S Counterattack was after Zeta. Oh no. This makes a number of things that were mentioned in this movie way less confusing now.
Yeah, for sure.
Because here's the thing, I know basics about Zeta. Essentially, I know enough about Zeta to at least understand certain reference points when it comes to Char'S Counterattack, because the largest aspects of the plot of Char'S Counterattack are really centered around Mobile Suit Gundam original.
Yes, it's still, a lot of it is still pulling from the central conflicts of Mobile Suit Gundam 0079.
Yeah. I mean, this is Char Needs Therapy, the movie, really. And then also needs to go visit Chris Hansen. Regardless, Char'S Counterattack. Yeah,
no, you told me, well before that you had ended up watching Char'S Counterattack before Zeta, and I definitely was like, well, that's not the end of the world, honestly, because so much of this is still pulling from 0079.
Yeah.
It's not like a huge deal. You're still going to get a lot of the main plot beats without having that additional context.
Right. I mean, the first one is obviously the Grips War. The main thing about that really, though, is that it's really more just in that realm of there were mainly these two events, that one specific, the Grips War specifically being that of Zeta Gundam. And obviously that has an effect on the outlook of his character.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that maybe what it would make me think about if I had watched it prior to this movie, I think the only thing the thing I think that it gives me a question on is if it would feel as though that this this movie and his position and everything about his character would feel like how I would feel about it versus maybe how I would have seen him in Zeta, right? When he's
Are you trying to say it would feel more justified?
No, I don't know. What I'm more making is that I'm wondering, would I look at his actions and characteristics in this movie as a downgrade if I saw Zeta? Would I look at it as a step backwards for him mentally? Would I look at it as, that's my question. Would I look at it as oh, well, he fought so much to defeat, to defeat the Titans and to, deal with, I mean, I guess he technically didn't have anything to do with the real first Neo-Zeon movement. But, where it's kind of you get to see him, while kind of an ass still, you still get to kind of watch him be a protagonist, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not that he was necessarily an antagonist for the entirety of Mobile Suit Gundam when you get to the nitty gritty of everything. But, in a way he is. So you got to look at it as more than that realm of would Zeta have given me a better idea of looking at him all right, now he can, kind of get to maybe where Sayla was at, where he's starting to see that there is, there are things to work for, but you can fight from this way or whatever, but I mean, granted, he had to go through most of Zeta under I'm going to say, quote unquote, disguise.
Mm-hmm.
Clark Kent ass. But yeah, but was would I maybe looked at it that way? I don't know. That's the perspective I'm going to be missing. So to me, going from 0079 right to Char'S Counterattack, it's kind of like, all right, now to me, it almost kind of felt like when I originally watched it, what I kind of thought was happening. And what it felt like was that it was like, all right, now that Char's gotten the why have their names escaped me? Zombie family. Now that they're gone.
Mm-hmm. Yep, the zombies.
Now that the zombies are out of the picture, I will bring the original intent to Xeon to fold, but still with the probably doing this war thing, which I don't know if his dad was necessarily going in that direction either, but I guess here he is. So it's like, that's where I kind of wonder is like, would I have looked at him differently instead of thinking like, okay, well, this is just kind of like what he would have done next, right? He would have gone right from 0079 to creating a new Xeon and being the leader of it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all to gauge perspective on my viewpoints when we get into my actual opinions and watching this.
Yeah.
Because let's get into the movie itself.
Let's do it. Let's get right into Char'S Counterattack.
That's right. So, the year UC 0092.
Yes.
So, Char's back, and specifically as a part of Neo Xeon.
Yes.
But boy, are we first introduced to one of the greatest characters in all of fiction. That definitely is of no problem whatsoever.
Don't mess with the quest.
Okay. I want to get this
Pariah
off the rip.
Is who we first meet at the start of this film.
I need to say this right from the start because obviously I'm going to have a lot of opinions as we go through around Quest and her actions, right? The number one thing I need to preface everything about this is, and this actually somewhat goes for Hathaway Noah too, right? Just to a slightly lesser degree until the end. And that is that Quest is a wonderfully written teenager. It is often what I would quantify to a lot of people, for example, as like the defense to how Anakin is written, right?
Oh, okay.
A lot of people are like, God, I get really annoyed with Anakin. God, Anakin is like so emotional. God, Anakin is blah, blah, blah. And or like people like, or like how people would hate Hayden Christensen. Specifically, I should say how people would hate on Hayden Christensen because they didn't like how Anakin was, right? Especially when people got really attached to Clone Wars Anakin, which is a very different Anakin. Let's be real. And the thing about it being that part of the reason that you hate Hayden Christensen is because he played Anakin's character too good. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, because Anakin is meant to be emotional, to be unthinking, to be quick to assume, to be non-rational, right? much like a teenager, which for the second episode he is, and still basically should be in the next one, right? So, you know, to that extent, Quest is very similar, where she's written, and obviously, as I will denote, gets very annoying and does like the things that make me want to pull my hair out sometimes during the course of this movie. But she's a teenager. She's 13. Who, like, especially she is almost exactly like the type of mentality that like the 13-year-olds get in like Disney shows where they're like, it's time for me. I'm 13. I'm an adult now.
Yeah, it's that youthful, hitting that point in your age where you are becoming a teenager, and that very innate desire to want to be seen as an adult even if you aren't one.
Well, and especially, you know, she is dealing with the fact that, you know, she is very disenfranchised with her father.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That, you know, she like feels obviously unseen, which is always a recipe for disaster for any child.
Also very unfond of her, or of his current romantic partner at the start of the film, which is just creating this further sort of dissent between them.
Right. And so, you know, like I'm going to sound very annoyed, but I want it to be very clear that she is, I want to make it very clear that she is actually very decently written. I'm not going to say like amazingly, but like she's decently written as far as being a teenager, being a 13-year-old, being put into this situation somewhat choosingly, but like, because it's knowing her character, right? She grew up with the kind of knowing about these wars and almost kind of being able to probably grow up. And we don't know this for a fact because it's just not mentioned, but like inherently you could think of the fact that there's a lot of this probably age group in this timeline, that this age group is kind of coming up with, you know, between this and between the Grips War, kind of almost having a realm of being able to look at it as kind of with really rose tinted glasses, you know, like, oh, these heroes, you know. I mean, you could honestly really look at it like a lot of people that, you know, inherently heard the great many tales, you know, from a historical one, right? The people who, you know, fought or saw the great tales of the soldiers of World War II, and maybe without even actually talking to any of those people, being like, well, now I'm going to join the military because of that, because they're great heroes. You know, they did this amazing thing, you know, because like, you know, World War II stories were everywhere, you know. And then obviously real war happens and you're like, oh. Mm-hmm. But she's so young. I don't think and the way that she's put into that war is almost like hilariously like distant. And like it's kind of like when we talked about talked about the kill count in G-Quux.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like she doesn't even know that she just killed tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
But yet here we are. So in here there's a similar scenario when we get to it. So like, I think she's written inherently correct. I think she's written correctly is the way I should word it. And I don't want that to be forgotten. So that's why I wanted it off the top. Because we are going to very immediately starts with the fact that she's just like, she's like running with these like, which again, really goes into the kind of the selfishness of her character. She is out with these people, which are just these kind of rebel-y Earth people, right? Earth folk. And they all get arrested for kidnapping because they're hanging out with her.
Mm-hmm.
And, we don't know what happened to them. But knowing everything we know about the space, the Federation, which we all know is not perfect, it might in fact they may have in fact gotten into a heap of trouble and will go to jail because she wanted to hang out with her and essentially have a hissy fit against her dad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. She is already, like, she kind of almost immediately hits you in that kind of rich girl who clearly wants more but doesn't understand what her status means, right?
Mm-hmm. I felt when I first saw Char'S Counterattack, first and foremost, she is also not my favorite protagonist or, deuteragonist in, really any of these films. She's pretty low on the bar. I don't hate her, but definitely not like, I'm not someone who's frequently like, oh man, remember that cool thing Quest did, or remember this really interesting character moment that she had. Like,
Yeah.
it's really,
They don't really exist.
we talked in our G-Quux episode. I won't get too deep into the details on it for anyone who, skipped it to watch it on their own. But there was a lot of talk we were having about how often G-Quux kind of felt like two different series or like two different storylines that were kind of being mashed together, and they didn't always fit quite well. And I feel a similar thing with Char'S Counterattack, where Quest, they're clearly trying to do kind of an A plot, B plot situation with Quest and Hathaway Noah versus Amuro and Char. And this is a similar thing where I feel like Quest is already a tough pill to swallow as far as like trying to have your audience understand and relate to somebody who is a young teenager as well as a latent new type and is kind of like very rebellious, very, I don't know if I'd say conceited. She's really trying to like look out for herself as opposed to any level of like, I'm trying to do this to save humanity.
I don't think she really ever grasps the idea of any of this being for or against humanity, to be honest.
No, it's so removed from her own priorities and her own desires that it makes it odd to have her be such a central focus in this film when you also have this sort of promised resolution of the like conflict between Char and Amuro.
Yeah, and it really definitely holds a lot of question into the involvement of them in the first place. When we get to the end, it's kind of where there'll be a point where I'll call into question the usage of them, because Hathaway doesn't get away from this either. When we get
absolutely
to a much
not.
lesser extent, but he's not immune to this criticism either. And we get to meet him fairly quickly as well when they're at the spaceport.
Yes.
So because
the Noah family,
is
the Noah family's trying to get onto, where were they? I'm trying to remember where they were going at this point.
They were going. They were definitely.
They're trying to get on a shuttle.
Yeah, because they're getting onto a shuttle. I think to get to. I mean, like essentially, obviously into space, right? Mm-hmm. I don't remember if it was specifically to get to just like side 6 or what. Mm-hmm. Because obviously side 6 is always kind of known as the like. Yeah, because they go to side 6 for the meeting, don't they?
I think for the meeting, the shuttle was going to. I think it was the Londonian shuttle. I'm pretty sure it was the same shuttle that Adenor and Quest were getting on. It's just that they weren't being allowed to go onto that shuttle. It's Mariah and her 2 children, of course, Hathaway and Shaman, and they have. I wish I wasn't blinking on this. I'm supposed to be the expert here. But there was they've got like a letter of recommendation, and I'm blanking on the person that the letter of recommendation was from, that they were trying to use to get passage onto the shuttle, but they were like, it's not good enough.
Which,
but then
crazy to think about the fact. Crazy about this woman, literally.
I know, right? This woman has done so much. How dare you? How dare you deny her anything at this point?
Yeah.
After everything she has been, like, horrible. But yeah. Quest's dad is like, okay, allow at least one of them to go on board the shuttle. And that's where Mariah has Hathaway take that seat. And like the idea is that her and her daughter will wait for the next shuttle if that ever comes.
Right. So obviously this is kind of where Hathaway becomes smitten with Quest, which makes sense from a young love.
But it also
quick, just like being this and just like this infatuation of, pretty girl your same age, it's they're like I said, they're 13, it's like not really.
We kind of had a similar thing with Amuro and 0079,
Yeah. Many people go through that. It's not like that is a very normal thing to exist.
What an alien concept.
I know. But yeah, so like, but it's interesting at least because we get to kind of quickly see almost there's a similar but different level of when you get to see the parenting from both dads when they get to the shuttle, right? Yes. You can tell. So Quest's dad very quickly, and this is important to talk about just because of their characters, right? This fuels their motivations.
Absolutely.
Quest's dad is very consistently just like, let's go. You're not doing it, blah, blah, blah. He wants to just kind of keep her away from everything. But then also just like kind of clearly just like fall in line almost. Mm-hmm. Where, Bright is kind of similar, wanting him to obviously listen, kind of having obviously this kind of militaristic parenting style. And that's not to say like abusive. That's just like fairly like, I'm going to give you like I'm going to give you a command. I'm going to tell you whatever, but not unloving. Right. And there's almost this extra compassionate side where then he does let him do things. He lets him go. He lets him do, he lets him go see the Gundam, whatever, like go into the bay. He is not necessarily obviously like immediately on board with just being like, yeah, just go around the space station.
Yeah.
But like they are, he's like, he has more give, which I think it's where like it kind of starts to give them where it's like they have this, the two of them then end up having this like semi-similarity, but the real differences become, I think, much clearer to Quest. But that also might, again, as kind of noted, might be Quest's kind of innate self-servingness that kind of drives her away from it in the future. But
yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yes, I was gonna say, when they talked about the psycho frame, by the way, because this is right when they get into seeing the new Gundam and everything.
How much did this concept of like the psycho frames melt your brain?
It just went right over. I was like, I guess this is a thing.
It's
well,
it's built into the frame of the what?
Well, no, my immediate thought was like, okay, well, I'm going through a time skip right now, right? So the concept is obviously new types is a more accepted concept, and they're utilizing that in the Gundam. That was all I knew, and that was all I thought. Was just they're using the new types, the new type brain in the Gundam.
That's a fairly. It's one of those things. It's like that's a pretty good way to describe it. But yeah, I mean they're putting the Saikamu onto these like nano computers that are built right into the frame of the new Gundam, and the idea is like it's going to shorten their reaction time. It's going to make them even faster.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, so this
for
is
now. I think you just need to know that new Gundam is cool as hell.
Yes,
I feel like that's kind of all you need to know at this point.
It is important. The V Gundam is very cool.
Super cool.
It is. It is also funny because this is also like the first time that we see Amuro in the movie.
Yes, Amuro Ray makes his appearance.
It's a little bit of a slow intro into Amuro.
But once he's here, he's here. Like at this point, you're going to be seeing him quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because at this point, the other two characters are really only shown when they're involved in our main characters.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But yeah, so I was gonna say, so I mean, seeing Amuro is interesting. I was disappointed. I'll say right from the jump. I think I was personally disappointed, and this maybe comes into, and because as far as I know, it's also not something that necessarily is addressed in Zeta as much either. I was hoping that essentially instead of that there would be a that Sailor Mass would be here.
Sure. Yeah, I get you.
But nevertheless,
unfortunately not.
Yeah, I was gonna say nevertheless.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those unfortunate things where it happens with quite a bit of this, like a lot of this media that still exists in the Universal Century timeline, where there's always going to be certain characters that you're like, man, I'd like to know what they were doing during this time or what was happening with them, and it's just like not feasible.
Yeah, well, it's also just that realm of like, was Chan in Zeta?
Sean was, I don't remember her being in Zeta. I'm pretty sure she was introduced in Counterattack.
Yeah, so that's where it was like, why are we building this new character when inherently we have a character that could do, I was like, okay, well, so that means unless she appears later, I was like, if Sayla is not in the group, essentially, because they're kind of showing who's involved here, right? We've brought back Bright, we have Amuro, and now we have her. So it's like, but like, we don't have Sayla. I was like, and so when it comes to the rest of the movie now, from obviously me knowing it, I feel like the downside of not having had Sayla be Chan or Sean, whatever, however you pronounce it, I don't remember, is they, that like that extra connection now no longer exists.
Yeah.
Because in the original series, the bridge for Char and Amuro was Sayla. Other than Lala, right? But like Sayla was the other one, right?
Yeah, because Sayla was aboard the White Base with them. She was this kind of, this like emotional connection between the two that they weren't fully aware of at first.
Yeah,
well, obviously Amuro wasn't aware of her, relationship as, the sister to Char.
Yeah, well, that, and even that, just then also that they are, like the fact that just like so many decisions of Char's, even some that even kind of, delayed, potential destruction of the White Base or like execution of plans were halted because of his reaction to that. I mean, hell, part of the reason that Lala had to sacrifice herself was because, he had to be warned that Sayla was in that, in that ship, that he needed to not kill her, but then obviously left himself open for Amuro to try to strike him, and then Lala sacrificing herself or not. G-Quunks. Anyway, so I feel like now after watching this that like that's kind of a missed opportunity. I feel like that could have been around. There could have been a thing to that. We could have more interaction.
I will say, without giving too much away, that obviously this is not what we have seen of Sayla Mass is not the last we will have seen. She will reappear. I do kind of agree that it would have been nice to see her play a more pronounced role in this conflict, especially. Like, it really just makes sense on most accounts, but we will see her again, and you'll get an idea of what she's kind of been up to during it.
Sure. It's just more, I think it would have, I think, helped also give more something to how this ends, like somebody will truly have understood and known what Amuro was wanted, and especially like knowledge of a Gundam a bit, or at least a piloting one. But regardless, here we are. We have Sean, and therefore Sean is who we will have. But it's very clear, like she and Amuro have a very close, if not, because they don't make it obvious from the jump, as Gundam often likes to do. But like they kind of very clearly have a relationship. Mm-hmm. Which is almost immediately pushed into a whole thing, because halfway, but especially Quest, kind of latch on to Amuro, specifically Quest, because I guess
it becomes a bit of
a hero guy.
Bit of a love rhombus situation where Quest is infatuated with Amuro, and then you have Uni Gus, who is a cyber new type that serves under Char, and he immediately becomes infatuated with Quest, who isn't interested in it. You really see how we can get all the way to G-Quux in the year 2025. And again, without going too far into details, you can see how like this just becomes like a very recurring thread in a lot of Gundam anime. It's
Yeah, I was
these
gonna
like
say.
crazy love connections and like just characters like longing for one another and trying to establish relationships and things.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, anybody who's upset with the fact that one exists in G-Quux would need to be like, okay, well, check your history. But
No, for sure. Sometimes in some series it works better than others. I
Sure.
personally don't feel that it's all that compelling in this one, though it is obviously a strong motivator for a lot of the actions that the characters take.
Yeah.
But
more importantly, because we can maybe get into the Neo Gundam side here in a second for characters. Gyune is the owner specifically of the best Gundam, which is the Jag Doga. Why, you may ask?
you're calling Jag the best Gundam?
Or mobile suit.
Hey
I should
man,
clarify.
hey man, hey man. I think a lot of people would agree with you. I think that's a crazy hot take because Jag Doga's pretty cool.
I was just saying, my reason might not be other people's reasons.
Okay, well now I'm curious.
My reason is explicitly bird head.
Oh yeah, you're so right.
Bird head.
You're so right.
So I will note this. I was say because while I may not necessarily always agree with the the ways and the outlook of Xeon itself, I do like Zaku.
I don't expect
a
you
lot.
to.
Yeah, I like Zaku's though a lot.
Oh yeah, they're cool. They're cool.
Yeah,
as hell.
I know. Well, I know there's a lot of people who go back and forth, especially on like there's obviously the classic. It's the classic. Are you Gundam or are you Zaku? Right.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I generally like Zaku. I love the mono eye. It's to me very iconic. But Birdhead Zaku essentially was like all I needed for like to be like that's it right there.
So cool.
So I love his mobile suit is so cool. I always love the kind of like semi burly nature of Zaku. It says again his with bird head peak. Otherwise,
how do you feel about the refined Gundam Zeta, the RGZ?
I need to remind myself of that look there.
It has an assortment of names, but
I need to
it's what
myself of
Amuro
it.
is piloting in the film.
At the beginning,
Like before, at the beginning, before the new Gundam.
Let me see here. I need an image. Give me a second. I'll get to it. I'll be able to. I was gonna say. Otherwise, I can like.
I'm
get to it pretty quickly.
faster. I prepared for the buck. No, but there you go. Put it in the chat.
Yes, this guy. Yeah, I mean, I think it's. I mean, it is in the feeling definitely of kind of like where I felt like Gundam were going, right? Because like obviously, OG Gundam is very, very basic. Like it doesn't have nearly as much extra paneling, like. But it's got. I mean, because it has the white, blue, red, and I guess in this case orange, but kind of yellow. That gives it like an incredibly classic look. But I do think V Gundam is. I do like the slightly more simpler design in the V Gundam, and then you add the funnels in the back. It's like this half wing, one wing an angel. Sorry. Bad jokes aside.
It's got its cool.
It's definitely cooler.
Yeah. I think it's a very cool design. It definitely, like you were saying, it's like a slight evolution. Like it's not like a major, significant change. It feels like a sleeker, slightly modernized version of the Mobile Suit Gundam that we are familiar with and love. It's a shame it doesn't work good against asteroids.
What, V Gundam or
well, I mean, just in general, when the when the fifth Luna gets dropped on the city of Lhasa, if you recall, Amuro Ray was piloting this when attempting to stop the asteroid from crashing.
Yes.
And it does not work.
Right.
You are familiar with the idea, this whole transition was terrible, but we're going to keep going. You are familiar with the idea of the colony drop. I brought this to your attention when I was first describing Gundam to you.
Yes, we can get into the main conflict of the movie.
Yeah. The colony drop is something that I talked with you about, and then we also got to kind of see some of the effects of it within the context of 0079. This film trades colonies for just straight up asteroids.
Yes,
and you get to see some of the destruction of that.
Way more sense for Char. It would never make sense if Char is trying to, especially specifically because like the reality of what we've discovered, right, is that these new types are only happening to those who are in, I guess, supposedly, because Quest is where I maybe raised that question a bit. But supposedly that like these new types are existing from space noids, right? I guess supposedly. I don't know exactly how true it is, but so as a result, the idea then that if you're going to try to create a universe for all space noids, you wouldn't drop the places and kill all the people,
which likely
that the new types would
a lot of the space noids that you that you're trying to establish a new world.
Yeah.
No.
So
he's very clear. He's very
sense.
direct about his hatred and his goal to eradicate specific people on Earth, as opposed to his fellow space noids.
Yeah, which there's obviously a great many questions to put on top of that when it's like, okay, so your plan is to create a nuclear winter on Earth for what? Because like, so you just don't want ever to go back to the Earth? You'll think you'll never need resources from it? Like, there are questions to be had when it comes to Char's outlook or planning.
Definitely. And his response to that seems to be that he's not concerned about resources from the Earth because, in his words, the people on Earth do nothing but pollute it, and their souls are weighed down by gravity.
Yeah, again, it's just like, what it gets to me then is it's that realm of like, man, it feels like such a disappointment because it feels to me watching it, especially in the fact that I did skip Zeta, and so you can tell me if this feels either worse or less correct from based on things that happen in it. Mm-hmm. You don't have to tell me why. You can just say if it is different. But like
Yeah.
for me watching it, what then made it more annoying was that it was like, okay, so you kill the Zabi family essentially just to be essentially, honestly, even the worst of the Zabi family. You literally are doing exactly what they were going for.
Yeah, you're talking about this idea of like him taking out the Zabi family and then essentially replacing them, and which is some, there's definitely a real world allegory throughout human history of the idea of like these regimes being taken over, and then the people who establish the new, whether it's a government or empire or what have you, afterwards will in some cases commit actions, or their rule will be such that it is looked on as being even worse than the people that came before.
Yes, it just feels
this sort of
strange
weird,
to me.
like hypocritical.
Yeah.
Like we saw you in your desire to wipe out the Zabi family. Your convictions were very clear of like, this is what I want to do. This is why. This is revenge, and not feeling like you're kind of missing a few pieces of the puzzle as far as how do you get from there where he's wiped out the Zabi family and seemingly has gotten the revenge that he would be looking for, to here where it's almost like that wasn't enough. I need to fully wipe out not just the Zabi family, but anybody that I perceive as being on that level as them.
Which is, again, I feel like, I don't know, like I feel like the thing that, which I maybe, again, I question kind of in that realm of like, I don't still fully know what his father's true ambition was, how far off from what the Zabi family did was his father's interest,
Yeah.
Would his father have done these colony drops,
Mm-hmm.
Would he have ever done something similar, or would he have wanted to create an only new type universe, and so where it feels like obviously a lot of this stems from his unresolved trauma of losing Lala, right? Who still effectively haunts the minds of both Amuro and Char, established very early in this movie. But
Yeah.
again, it just feels weird because it's just like, why are we, or why, yeah, like essentially, why have you turned yourself into Girin Zabi 2.0? Like, if he were to make himself, say, especially the original form of shoot. Her name, the daughter of Zabi.
Yes, the daughter.
Cassilia.
Yep.
Like if you were to end up maybe being a little bit more like how I think we saw Cassilia would have been, right? Because while in G-Quux, spoilers again, we saw that she kind of was also somewhat turning kind of into Girin in that universe. The thing is how that timeline worked and how her mentalities shift is likely to be different. But like, at least from like the original, Cassilia always kind of showcased to be very much kind of just in line with specifically Degwin, right? Where Degwin has a very radical way of fighting for space noid independence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he is a very, warrior, especially authoritarian kind of outlook on getting through all of this and government and everything, which is, it is what it is. But as a result, he still had sensibilities. He still had the realm of negotiation. He had a line because he was going to go, when he died, he was going to go sign a treaty. He knew where a line was, where, Girin did not care. Girin wanted to eradicate all non-new types.
Yes.
And Cassilia did not, at least originally, showcase that. And I mean, hell, neither did Dozal or Garma, really. I mean, hell, Garma was almost the most unlike any of them. But like, if Garma had some type of political power, that he would have at least if he had survived, right, that he would have at least one way or the other still had, I mean, like in G-Quux, where it's like, it's kind of thrown out there, but it's like essentially he just kind of is just like he's just kind of a noble. Mm-hmm. Like, he's just kind of like living a rich life, but away from everything else, away from the government. And so I kind of wonder, like, why didn't Char, when he was going to maybe act more like a Zabi, was he not more like a Cassilia or a Dozal? Like, why did he turn into Girin? Like, out of all of them, right? That's what confuses me. Or even like Degwin. Sure. Like, if he was just more like Degwin.
There is a long history in the events that happened directly after the 1 Year War and coming to here. A lot of it we're going to cover when we're going through Zeta and Double Zeta, but it's one of those things where you would kind of expect him, having completed his revenge against the Zabi family, to just kind of disappear and go off and live his own life. And he technically does do that, and then very quickly finds himself brought back into the conflict.
Yes, which I want to be clear quick. That I didn't think that would last. That type of thought would last forever. I could see him being a Neo Zeon. It was just mindset.
I think you'll find, kind of dancing around it a bit, you're going to find that Char starts out with these very clear-cut ideas and like very strong conviction towards specifically avenging his family and like correcting the atrocities of the Zabi family. And you'll find as Gundam progresses and as the Universal Century timeline progresses that he becomes more and more disillusioned with not just the Federation and Zeon as a whole, but with a lot of these new factions that begin appearing and rising up after the end of the 1 Year War, to the point where he sort of... It's not a quick descent, but he definitely almost alienates himself from everything that isn't Neo Zeon. And even then, his approach to Neo Zeon and like the first Neo Zeon War is very much with him at the helm and with his ideas in mind, instead of fighting for Neo Zeon or just fighting for the Axis colony. It's really difficult to grasp it seeing this movie first. And it's such a jarring change to see him act this way. The best I can say is that I think it will make more sense for you when we have covered Zeta.
Sure. And that was my thought, was like, my question was kind of, like, how much is Zeta showcasing, that kind of transition.
Mm-hmm.
Like what kind of happens to him to kind of, is there something that kind of triggers something that kind of just puts him in that, like, yeah, you know what, Giran was right.
I would say it's multiple things.
I was gonna say, because it's kind of where he is, right? He's kind of in a Giran was right mentality now.
It's like Giran was right, except, how do I put it? Giran was right, but Char is so singular minded and so focused on like what he's concerned about. For him, it's not a point of being like, you know, Giran had good ideas or Giran's ruthlessness was the way to handle, and like he was correct about like needing to just eradicate the Earth Federation entirely. I think it's more so that his experiences result in him feeling that he it's not as simple as him just being like Giran's methods were the way to go about it. It's almost like he's able to better justify those methods when it's himself doing it, and it's himself with the full responsibility, as opposed to Giran being the one to do it.
Gotcha. Okay. So
in this film,
yeah,
we approach and we are given another go about of Amuro versus Char. And there's a lot of moments where they are very much just straight up arguing with each other about how things should be handled and what should happen to the Earth. And
it starts right from the jump.
Right from the jump. and then continues throughout the film. Yeah.
Like bros see each other, just immediately start fist fighting in the grass.
Yeah. And it's really fun. It's really interesting because we know where they had kind of left off with each other at the end of 0079, where it was like, yeah, they kind of had this brief understanding of each other as new types and sort of a recognition in each other. But as much as they kind of split off and take the opportunity, and Char's just like, you know, he says to Sayla, it's like, you should just go, you know, live a life with Amuro. Don't get yourself involved in these conflicts anymore. It's definitely not as if they completely settled their own issues that they had with each other.
No. And I mean, and then obviously Zeta goes through everything, and I mean, there's a whole thing centered around that / double Zeta, and even aspects of the second or the first Neo-Zeon War. So yeah, like there is this, there's more history in between. I mean, there's a number of, I mean, right, we're in a number of years. I mean, like you said, right, like it is, it's 93, so this is, you know, 14 years later. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff has happened. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I mean, it makes sense, but God, that fist fight leads into the first just wild ass decision made by fucking Quest.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, she sees that they fight, right? So she knows Char's whole thing. She knows his whole plan is to create this nuclear winter on Earth. It's not like she doesn't know. It's not like anybody keeps this a secret from her. She knows. And then she gets pissed that he pulls a gun on Char. like Amuro's too
Question?
nice. Amuro's too nice. Amuro is too nice. He's been a soldier for how long now? He should have just taken the shot. I know. There's so many reasons he wouldn't have. It's just that realm, though. Just like, bro, you have been through, Amuro, you've been through all of this. And because this whack-ass 13-year-old girl is mad at you for pulling out a gun on literally a guy who's about to commit genocide on the entire earth, like, you are not beholden to her. What are you doing? What are you doing?
It's another interesting effect of like having her be sort of like a quasi main character, where she has this really interesting like emotional like weight over a lot of these situations where you wouldn't expect anyone to really pay her any mind or attention. Like, it's not like she's pulling rank, you know what I mean? Like,
no, it's just she intervenes because she's just like, she just really liked what Char says, and it's just like, okay. But yeah, like, so they were on side one, by the way, is what I've come to grips with.
Yeah.
So it's kind of in this though that so now, because I feel like everything really everything solidly in the plot really happens in the Neo-Zeon side, right? Because everything now centers around kind of Char and everybody that is currently trying to do something with him. Now that is varying. So, there is Char, and then you have his assistant / technical public love interest, whatever, in Nanai.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Gyune, his kind of right hand and kind of, guy he's trying to mentor. And now Quest, who he's kind of trying to unlock this power with. And she obviously so like, Nanai and Quest both have this romantic interest in him, where Gyune has a very, I don't want to say paternal, but mentory, like looking up to him as a mentor outlook to him. And so the plot almost like really centers around, because everything that the Federation and Amuro and everything, they're all just trying to figure out what they're going to do to deal with it, right? Mm-hmm. And most of it just amounts to, all right, we're going to just figure out more ways to deal with or more ways to soup up our Gundam is really the answer that they get to. So I feel like and this is maybe an overall note for the movie, I feel like the Federation plot in this really takes a backseat.
It does. The kind of the main,
I'm not
a lot of the main
Amuro
focus is
specifically.
on the negotiation of like the peace treaty between the Earth Federation and Neo-Zeon and the factions. There's a lot to do with the Sweetwater colony. On side 5, Char obviously is like using it as like the base of operations. There's a lot of conversation about whether or not he intends to just have Sweetwater recognized as like a sovereign nation, or just still intends to go through with his plan to drop the second asteroid.
Or just like a really cool music online merchandise place,
Yeah, for sure. So many drum kits that he's kind of smuggling aboard the Sweetwater. At least one Omnicord. But that's kind of like the major question that's in place, and whether or not he is. What does he care about? Like, does he care more about sort of like building up the colony of Sweetwater into a sovereign state? Does he care more just about, I'm gonna wipe out the Earth and send it into a nuclear winter.
Right. Where like everything then with Amuro really settles on like, I don't give a shit about any of this peace treaty stuff. I know Char's dropping that goddamn rock.
Yeah, Amuro is like aware of like things that have happened with the Grips conflict, and is like, no, I fully believe that he is going to try to freeze the Earth, and I need to stop him because that's what I do. I stop Char.
Yeah, and so now we've got this. Yeah, like I said, now we're on the Xeon side. In a way, you could say there's a love pentagon. If you do include a Hathaway, otherwise if it's just the Xeon side, then if it's just Xeon, then it's a love rhombus. But if you include Hathaway, now it's a pentagon.
Yeah, that's true. And one of the things this film does try to do is it really I should say, because there was no point where we actually literally said this. I like this film. I do enjoy this film. Yeah. It's an enjoyable watch. It's not actually my favorite, despite like naming this entire series after it. I do think it has issues. And the film really does try its best to include Hathaway Noah and like make him, a significant character. But I do feel he kind of gets washed out a bit.
Until he makes probably the one of the literal dumbest moves in the entire movie.
It's exactly right. Like he's kind of just there until he really does a thing, and then yeah. So
let's talk about then, because I feel like like this whole movie I feel like is super reliant on it's really pushing you on the character to character interest in like an interaction, right?
Yes.
And I want to talk about Gyune specifically because he's a cyber new type, so he gets kind of bullied.
Yep.
By a number of the other Neo Xeon people. So he constantly feels like he needs to continue to prove himself, despite that Char truly believes in him. Like, seemingly really does believe in him, He, has brought him up to this status. He keeps him at his side, And so, that's a big thing is that then it's like, okay, so what does he do? Well, now he has been been given the task by Char. And, there's obviously we'll get into an aspect of Char here with Quest in a minute, but he kind of was tasked by Char to be like, I want you to unlock Quest. I want you to unlock Quest's new type potential. I sense a lot of it. I think she's got big new type potential. Much and so it's like, but now he's kind of in this weird middle ground because he wants to prove himself, but now Quest Quest is now instead rejecting Gyune in a way, right? And trying to go right to Char because
she's
Char's the one she's infatuated. She's totally infatuated with Char. So now it's him constantly just he's trying to balance between both trying to get Quest to see him as a love interest, but then also is trying to compete against her as a soldier. But like, I feel like the thing he doesn't get, and because she never truly gets it, but like the thing he doesn't get, which he should have, is that she is not looking at herself as a soldier. Right?
Correct. Yeah.
Because like when Amuro goes through all this, he gets kind of told fairly quickly by like Bright, where you're a soldier now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is war. You are in war now.
Yeah. I mean, they frame it around like being a man in the original series, but essentially you could just change the word to just soldier, and it would make perfect sense, right? Because 70s were different, but
Yes.
that's essentially the speech he was giving. He was not. It wasn't just about literally being a man, like, or whatever masculinity. It was more about being a soldier. And being an adult, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to become an adult now, and she doesn't get that. And I don't know how much Gyune got that really either, which is what I find interesting about him.
Yeah.
Because, he's kind of, because the Jag Doga is kind of a segment of this kind of, it's supposed to be this kind of this new step, right? It's supposed to be a part of this new step that, like, he has his, the Jag Doga has funnels. It's more advanced than many of the other Zaku. And
how are you feeling about funnels? Having seen them in play now here in Char'S Counterattack.
I mean, it's all any new things they could put onto Gundams. It's just, hey, here's some cool shit. It's like when I see new different types of guns get put into Warhammer, right? I'm like, for me, it's just like, cool, another gun. I can't wait to see it just destroy somebody.
Funnels are a genie in a bottle. And it's one of those things where once that bottle gets opened up and the genie comes out, it never goes back in. Once funnels are properly introduced into the world of Gundam, they are a constant throughout all of the other series that we're going to be, talking about and covering.
Well, and I mean, honestly, for so many of them as they come, I mean, for so many of them, it ends up being such a key point of their design too. I mean, like, Gundams with wings are so important. And I know, Gundam wing, huh? But
Gundam,
what? but like, I mean, inherent great example of this is, I forget the actual name of it, but the main Gundam in Seed.
Yes.
Like, its design, when you see images of it, like, even if you just search, right, Gundam Seed, and you look at like the wings they have, and then you could just inevitably get to more and more funnels.
Yes.
And so it's just like, there's, to me, I guess it wasn't as much of a surprise, because it's like I've seen them on other Gundam before, but like, it's weird to imagine them never having them.
Yeah, once they're there, it's hard to like picture them not having been there.
So yes, I think the funnel thing is fine. No problems with it. So let's see. So
we were talking about Gyune.
Yeah, so Gyune ends up, because like they kind of give her a Jag Doga, but then essentially Quest, they pilot her they put her into this new armor. Sorry. The Alpha Aziru. Not great. It's pronouncing these.
They start introducing Greek letters into the names, and it immediately starts to get a little more confusing.
Yeah, but it's this extra one. Where it's essentially like it's obviously they're a space focused mobile suit, but they are, it is just all keying in on her like it's kind of, I feel like they were trying to gauge it almost kind of like in this, you know, the kind of like how Lala's thing was designed, where it's like they're really pushing for like, how will this engage with her new type abilities, you know?
Yes.
Because the Psychomu is really important. Which, again, originally not necessarily knowing about Psychomu, that was my thought, was that this was like, oh, they're trying to make her like a second Lala, right? Where, obviously, now that Psychomu has been specifically like adapted into Gundam and whatever, all mobile suits, it's an extra even, right? There's more to that. But now it's even harder for Gyune because he has to babysit her now, and she's in charge of a suit until, you know, she just decides, I'm going to jump out of my suit and go into Char's suit.
Yeah. It made sense at the time.
You know, I need to double check something here. What was it called? What? Yes, thank you. Yeah, so for anybody who's watched Event Horizon,
Interesting.
you'll recall a scene where a guy gets sent out into space, right? Decompression is a whole thing, and I know that we often kind of skirt around this in the world of Gundam, right? But I will note, I do at least like that they acknowledge this by having her go into his ship, by having her plug up and ball up, and then go, because that's what you're supposed to do, right? If you were to suddenly go into that decompression of space without proper like shifting, the way to temporarily survive is to do that, right? Which is like the whole scene in Event Horizon.
Yeah.
Granted, it would probably more realistically happen the way that it does in that movie, but this is Gundam. So, but yes, so we're finally kind of getting into this route where I just had to bring that scene up because I thought it was interesting. And, again, it's Quest doing Quest things. But at least in the plot, right? So now we're in this weird point where, like I said, we are in this, on the Zeon side, this love rhombus. Gyune is constantly trying to both impress Quest and impress Char.
Mm-hmm.
Nana Miguel, the supposed love interest / I guess from her perspective, yes. From Char's side, who knows? He's a complex guy. She's trying to all just keep everything on track too, right?
Yeah.
Like, because Char is just consistently distracted, consistently trying to do shit, and she is like immediately annoyed with Char's interactions with Quest, right? Because she has a reasonable mindset. Char, this is a child. She's like, don't.
Hey, man.
Like, she's like, don't like give her ideas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you have a job to do. And like, I'm here to help you do it. but like don't give her this like random idea that like you're somehow going to be like you're into her, right? Like, but like he still does, because Char's kind of a freak in this movie.
He doesn't care about her at all. He very much just sees her as a tool, and it's like, well, if it keeps her in my good graces and I can continue to use her, then yeah, I will be whatever she wants me to be, which is gross and despicable.
So,
and obviously feeds into sort of her growing unstable nature, as she is both trying to assert herself as being with Char, and also becoming more and more attuned to the horrors of what she has gotten herself into in regards to the war. And he's not particularly concerned with any of that. He's so single-minded that he is willing to just use her and let her believe whatever she wants to believe. And it is pretty horrible thing that he's doing.
Yeah, which is funny then, because obviously Yune tells Quest that, like, hey, Char's real love was Lalo. And
yes,
obviously the Nanai thing is like a public thing and all that.
But he's doing it for the politics, for the appearances.
Yeah, and it's funny to me because clearly he meant to tell her that in this sense of like, that means that you don't have a chance. Quest clearly took that as, oh, that means he actually is single.
that means I need to get all of them out of my way.
Yeah. It means that he actually is available, which is, again, it's just so indicative of just like her frame of mind,
Yes. No, absolutely. It shows how she's already reached this point where mentally she is going to create whatever narrative in her head she needs to in order to get what she's after.
Mm-hmm. So quickly going back before we kind of get into the actual fight, we should note at least the main thing happening in the Federation side, because at least what's happening is they're working on getting their own funnels working, and then obviously building through the Psychomu, which is the main job between Amuro and Sean. But Hathaway is around. He's not really doing much of anything, as you noted already.
Yeah.
He's around, and mostly he's lamenting about Quest.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a lot of plot. Like, and this is what I meant. Like, there's not much else plot wise. The only things that we get going into this final fight is that this stuff is tough. They get into a fight. There's an earlier fight where Gyune uses Sean as bait, because like her suit gets destroyed, which I think was I guess it was her own version of the REGZ.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't remember if it was, because it wasn't the V Gundam by that point.
Correct.
But anyway, yes. So, and Amuro pulls Amuro things to both to be able to, to be able to try and get himself out of there, but they do lose a pilot in the process. Kara is, I guess, a character that comes up in their because again, she has her own REGZ.
Mm-hmm.
I said Sean earlier, and that was my bad.
Yeah, that would have been Kara that that he grabbed.
Yeah, but it's really that whole scene really only centers around like how difficult it is for Amuro to for Amuro to manage this. The thing that fucking happens, that, hold on, let me see. I need to check that I'm doing this at the right time here. Yes. Okay, here it is. So in that earlier, or part of an earlier fight as well, in the first fight, fucking, let's get back into quests again. Because it's going to be like really sensible, which is that like the dissociation of quests is just such a thing to unpack. Because it's earlier in the movie than I thought that Quest straight up kills her own dad.
Yeah, and it's interesting in the way that it happens, where you're not 100% certain if she is aware that her father has died in the process of that.
No, which she should be.
She should be, but yeah.
She's a new type. She should, if there's yes, I get it. They're mostly connected to other new types, but it's been shown in other sequences when it's like at least like someone they care about, that they have like some connection to it, right? So like the fact that she senses nothing is insane. And then what, did just nobody tell her? You know?
Yeah.
Like, did no one like inform her, hey, by the way, your father's dead? Like, I don't know. I mean, I imagine they did that because maybe they thought that she would become, she'd become disenfranchised with the Xeon effort, right?
Right, but they also don't have an understanding of how detached she already was from her father to begin with.
Right, and so that's where, like, yeah, maybe that was why they didn't want to tell her. Mm-hmm. But, like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like even as a teenager, no matter how annoyed or kind of detached from your father you feel emotionally at that moment, like, I feel like it still has to affect you, like as a 13-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And the fact that is just swept under the rug and she doesn't sense it at all is crazy. And it kind of denotes that, like, have we not thought that maybe just some of these new types are kind of just sociopaths?
I mean, the argument's there. I think what's happening with Quest specifically in this film is it feels to me like they're almost trying to speed run Amuro's trauma with her character. Yeah. Like they're trying to sort of recreate a lot of similar points of like trauma and actualization, but doing it in a much smaller span of time, in a way that it kind of feels neglected. Like they're not giving it the room that it needs to breathe.
Yes. Because now we finally get into the titular fight. So Char and company they're dropping the rock, right?
Yes, the Axis, yeah.
Yes. So obviously Amuro and Sean go out because they don't have Kayla. And so they are, but they launch into their fight. Amuro goes right in because of course he does.
Of course.
He kind of having a bit more confidence and knowledge with the funnels. He's able to essentially kind of deal with them fairly well, like not too difficultly. If I remember, it's not really that long, the fight between like the Jagged, the Alpha, and V. And the V Gundam, you know. So, but what's interesting is that, yeah, like, because of this damage, Quest kind of starts to lose it.
Yeah, her
You know?
descent into madness is like accelerating.
Yeah, because like, and you know, I don't know if it's just frustration, if it's like, I don't know what, but like, you know, this unfortunately causes Hathaway to decide that he's going to steal a Jagan and go
try and save her.
You know,
yeah,
this girl he spent 1/2 day with is just so worth it.
mm-hmm.
You know, Bright. This to me is a failure upon Bright Noah.
There are plenty of moments in this film, and again, I must reiterate, I do enjoy this film.
Yes.
But there are plenty of moments in this film where I'm kind of like, why is Bright Noah just taking such a secondary role in all of this?
Yeah. I mean, 100%.
He really could serve to be more, in the same way that you were talking about like Sayla Mass, how it would make a lot more sense for her to be more present for this. Bright's in the movie. And I still also kind of feel that of like, I feel like he should be in a much more prominent position. Granted, it's not like he's doing nothing. You know, he's obviously involved with the whole idea of trying to prevent Axis from hitting the Earth.
Yeah, well, he's in a command role. You know?
He's in a command role, but he has such a personal stake, or he should have such a personal stake in this conflict, that it's weird for him to not be involved in this.
I feel like it's crazy that he would not have any grips, because like, yes, I get it, both Sayla and Amuro under his watch have stolen a Gundam, right?
Yeah, it very much becomes a thing. By the time we get to this film, it is an established thing that like some teenager somewhere is going to steal a Gundam eventually.
Yes. So my thought is, at this point, how have you not found any failsafe for this?
Because it's
How
just,
do you not find a way to prevent this?
Because sometimes when they steal the Gundam, it results in a win for the Federation. So
it's about to be a partial L because of it, as we're gonna talk about in a second. You know, because though, fucking Hathaway is taken. I guess he hasn't taken our shit. He didn't take a GZ. So Sean goes out to go help Amuro with the GZ. And, you know, I would like to note in this plot recap, just to remind me, because it's just so, when you read a plot sometimes, it's so much more like just blunt than if you watch it.
Definitely.
But I like how it's like, you know, so she launches in the damaged REGZ and launches to save Amuro as Astianage, the lover of
Estonia.
Yeah. Okay, that's probably the more correct way to say that.
Who I don't think we have mentioned yet, if I remember correctly.
No, I guess I didn't necessarily. I mean, like many characters that we didn't talk about in Mobile Suit Gundam.
Yeah, no, there's a fair share of characters that
didn't
just
feel like it was as relevant to
Yeah.
the greater critiques and criticisms of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So he lost his lover. So he's trying to dissuade her. No, don't go out. Clearly kind of in this realm of like, don't end up like Kira, right? Like, and she's like, I'm gonna do it anyway. But yeah, so it words it as Estonia tries to dissuade her. As she launches, a stray beam hits the desk, killing Estonia.
And there you have it, all wrapped up.
It's just like, all right, this guy's mentioned like 3 times in this plot recap.
This film
it makes it seem so much more blunt,
so inconsequential. It makes it sound, yeah.
But I mean, it's kind of because, like, I mean, from a plot aspect, it's just kind of more like, ooh, you know, you're mostly just kind of meant to watch and be like, ooh, oh, that sucks.
I have a point to make about what I think this film is trying to do, but I'm going to save it. We'll
let's
to
get into the
stuff
the
first.
fight. Yeah, let's
we
get
got to
into
get
the
into the
first.
fight.
So, and the actual like things in the somewhat the physical end of the movie. So yes, so the okay, so let's see. So
Hathaway does get to
So-
Quest and is like begging her to stop
yes.
everything that she's doing.
Yes. So so if I remember, was it specifically Sean that fires the grenades against the Alpha? I thought I remembered because it's kind of like a whole like he's just kind of reacting quick. I know that, but like, was it her REGZ? It had to have been, right? Or was it?
It was the.
It says the psychoframe sample in this recap, but like I'm failing to picture in my mind like what that sequence of events looked like.
I'm trying to remember exactly how it goes.
Let me see. I'm gonna remind myself.
I'm remembering from when I watched this that it was Sean's mobile unit that fires the missile.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So Amuro's fighting. Also, want to talk. We haven't talked about this yet. Find it interesting that now in the Gundam, or now in all the mobile suits, they all have like a stereoscopic video screen.
Yeah.
Instead of just being a cockpit.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Which,
interesting.
I'll
change.
be honest, I will always prefer a cockpit look.
I 100% agree with you, my guy.
But clearly they were trying to make it seem really advanced for the movie.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Just like after all the years and everything.
Yeah, if I remember,
Right.
I'm attempting
unfortunately
to.
Q&A gets cooked too. Unfortunately,
Yeah, I'm trying. I am attempting to remember this without using a recap, which is always a smart thing to do. But my memory is that, it is Sean who fires the grenades, and Quest jumps in front of Hathaway and gets hit with the grenades, and it blows up the Alpha.
let's see here. So, yeah, I mean, they're kind of engaged. I'm not getting a good. Unfortunately, I was gonna say I was not getting a good. The video I found was not helpful. Maybe this is the whole thing. Hold on, this will help, or won't. This isn't the right part of the final battle, or the one that I want. You know, it's funny. Searching YouTube for Char'S Counterattack Quest death does not actually show Quest's death. But as I say, because it's been taken off Netflix now, right?
I believe so. Yes, I believe it's no longer on Netflix. I'm gonna find it here.
Pooh. Let's see. Hold on. Sorry.
Yeah, so Shan fires the grenades.
Yes.
To hit.
She does fire it.
To protect Hathaway, and they end up hitting the Alpha and killing.
Because
Quest
she was
entirely.
holding on to him, and
Yes.
she tells, but then she's like, essentially, okay, get out of the way, and then gets hit. Mm-hmm. And then here comes Hathaway's one fucking thing he does in the whole movie, and it's the dumbest thing.
Yeah, so Quest dies, and Hathaway is obviously upset because he's spent almost the entirety of this film being obsessed with her.
Yeah, and so what does he do? He kills his own ally.
Kills Sean.
Yep. Because,
The things we do for love.
Like, I always kind of wonder how, like, an after action battle report goes. And I haven't watched Mobile Suit Gundam Hathaway yet, Mm-hmm. I really want to know.
We'll get to it.
Really want to know what the post fight scene on this would be.
Yeah.
In that. Because, like, damn, dude, you got some shit to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, unfortunately, that kind of ends all on its own. Hathaway just goes away, much like he did for the rest of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then Amaru and Char, they duel constantly.
It's time to continue to duel.
Yes.
And this is where he brings up Lala again. He's talking about Char's talking about Lala, and this is where I feel like we're kind of really getting the central thesis of what this film is trying to do, at least in my opinion. Where
it's keep going.
It's there are so many instances in this film of you have this character and they are yearning for, or they have a relationship with, or they are connected to another character. And then at some point in this like horrific chain reaction that is the events of this film, they end up losing that other person and experiencing loss and grief. And it feels like on a grander level, above the primary conflict of the film, the titular counterattack that's happening here isn't just Char's plan to crash the asteroids into the Earth, to create a nuclear winter, to fully eradicate the Earth Federation once and for all. Inadvertently, the part of his actions that succeeds is that he introduces unto all of these other characters, through a domino effect, the feeling of losing someone that you love. And we have seen now by this point how much the death and the loss of Lala has affected Char and has twisted his mindset and changed his motivations. And this film feels like that same effect being like sort of handed out to all of these other characters. And it's important that he is making such a point to Amuro to be like, you need to remember Lala. Remember the pain you felt. Remember what you went through when Lala was killed. Because that is like such a primary motivator for him, is the grief and him having to have gone through having the people that he genuinely cared about also end up dying for him. And it's like, it is his primary motivator, and it manages to, like a disease, it spreads to all of these other characters in this film who also go through loss, and then each end up kind of handling that in their own way and dealing with it. And it becomes less about like this big plot to destroy the Earth and the Earth Federation, and more so about how we handle grief and how we handle the loss of a loved one.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, like that's entirely the basis of the movie, right?
Yeah.
So, from that, then, the number one thing ends up being that, okay, so now, we've got, so like now, now they have fought. Amuro kind of has won. Char kind of goes through an escape pod, but he rams it along with himself into Axis, which has split in half because of like planted nuclear bombs to try to, make it so to stop it from going into the Earth. Mm-hmm. But one, much like the movie Armageddon, is still heading towards Earth. And so they are trying to push it, or Amuro specifically, is trying to push it away. And so they continue to have essentially that discussion, right? Amuro says, like, I didn't want to be any type of parental figure to Quest, and Char actually talks about kind of how Lala almost kind of had this like motherly figure aspect to him, which is a whole psychological thing to unpack. Complete. That's a whole. Oh, hi, Dr. Freud. So yeah, I mean, that's. But like, then all of a sudden you get this gigantic Psychomu reaction. A bunch of Federation suits for some reason try to help also push. Because like the whole argument they're having while this is going on is like, they're like, talking about like, the new types are not meant for war, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And like, people will not help you. People are blah, so people are bad. People are, they're kind of having that back and forth in that argument. And then so all of a sudden they're all coming, and obviously he's like, stop. Because they're burning up. They're not mobile suits that are meant to take atmosphere. So, and then Amuro's big psycho wave gets them all off. And then, I mean, I don't know. Is this technically a Zeknova that they go through?
This is the interesting thing. I did a little bit of research in advance, trying to work out, because obviously when we think about G-Quux, and I'm going to tread lightly around it, a lot of that anime kind of gets into the idea of the Zeknova, and what we see happen with Axis here, I believe it is referred to as a psychoframe luminescence phenomenon.
Okay.
Which isn't necessarily the Zeknova, but I feel like had to have been an influence on the creators of G-Quux when they wanted to, when they were kind of working out how the Zeknova would be playing into the plot. Obviously, in that case, it has to do with the Solomon, but I won't go into too far into details on that.
Yeah. But like that's the thing. It's like, yeah, they don't call it that. It doesn't get referred to as that but like now that we have the the terminology.
Well, that's the thing. It's like now that we have that context, it becomes a question of like, is that meant to be sort of in hindsight, are we meant to now look back at this as being a full example of that?
Which I wonder then, does that mean that Char and Amuro are somewhere else? A different universe? It's just a thought.
It's just a theory.
A Gundam theory.
It's just a Gundam theory.
We both went there. Glad we both went there. So, yes. So we get through this whole thing. Pretty much all the characters we get introduced to in this movie die.
A lot of deaths.
And,
for sure.
And the only one left is Hathaway, who everybody is
Hathaway is alive. Bright Noah.
The funk off at.
Bright Noah is still alive.
Oh, technically, Nanai is still alive.
Nanai is still alive as well, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean.
And Amuro and Char vanish.
In terms of knowing then what happens after this, well, there are other series, technically.
Mm-hmm. I want
what is the technical next? Before I just want to ask quick. What is the technical next thing in the timeline, the UC timeline?
The technical next thing.
The unicorn?
I believe would be unicorn.
I would say it's unicorn or Hathaway, right?
It would be
because Hathaway has Hathaway, right? So.
Well, no, because Hathaway is going to be UC0105. Hathaway is a bit of a time jump, so I will say as much in regards to that. When Hathaway Noah in the animated film Gundam Hathaway is a much older.
Right, and then Gundam Unicorn.
Unicorn is next. That would be the very next thing. That is, I believe, within like 3 years of the end of Char'S Counterattack.
Okay.
I want to, as we're kind of putting a cap on this film, I want to revisit that quote that I brought up earlier.
Oh yeah, the main story takes place in UC 96. So yeah.
Yeah, 96. Yep.
Which is only 3 years later.
Yes.
Yes.
I want to, because it's such a like incredibly like significant quote in the Gundam fandom. You know, It's one of those things that just gets brought up all the time. You know, super super huge quote. And I brought it up earlier, but we didn't like spend too much time on it. Having seen this film now, and with the understanding that, you know, we're probably going to dig a little bit deeper into some of this with Zeta and Double Zeta, when Char responds to the question of why do you want to destroy the Earth, and he says that the people on Earth do nothing but pollute it, their souls are weighed down by gravity. What is your takeaway from what he is saying there? What do you think that means for him to say their souls are weighed down by gravity?
I mean, he's clearly looking at the universe now, especially from this. Like, he's looking at the universe as like space has garnered freedom and like has allowed a new sense of self, right? And the new types are obviously like a function to that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, he's like, I think by him saying that, you know, he is kind of almost showcasing or establishing this kind of sense of superiority, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I agree. I think what he's trying to say with this is that the difference between humanoids and space noids or new types is far more than just these like latent abilities that they have. It's more than just this like the psychic connection or anything like that. It's more than the faster reflexes. It is something inherent within not only them physically, but also in their spirit and in how they perceive the universe at large that makes them functionally superior to humans. And that Earth doesn't really have value because of not because of like the Earth itself, but because of the people that populate it. Like they can never hope to ascend to the levels. And I think this is really important with the introduction of the cyber new types as well. Because you have these characters like Yune Gus that are cyber new types. And when you're going to introduce this idea of like people who are made into new types as opposed to being born as them, it makes sense for you to have somebody like Char whose opinion is like, what new types are isn't something that you can just manufacture. There is something deep within. There is a spiritual element to being a new type that cannot be replicated just through like physical enhancements. And that's why he makes the point of being like it's their souls that are weighed down by the gravity of their connection to Earth. It's not enough to change anything about them physically. It's impossible to quote unquote fix them or make them see reason, because there's an inherent thing that will always separate us from them that cannot be changed.
Yeah, but I mean, he's also pretty, he's decently, like, I don't know, like he's kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, like he's generally pretty nice to Gyune, and like, unlike the other people who look at him negatively, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they, he does look at him as like, hey, like there is nothing like wrong with you, like you are who you are. But you're right in that, like, he obviously puts a lot more, once he finds like a real new type, he does put a lot more into it.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, there is a there is definitely a it is not without, he's not, I guess, without these like cyber new type prejudice, but just not directly.
Gotcha.
But anyway, yeah, so otherwise, yeah, I mean, obviously the V Gundam and the Sazabi are iconic mobile suits.
Absolutely. So cool.
And I mean, the fight itself, I mean, this movie is great, obviously, for the fights, which, classic Gundam take. But like, I think what really helps the movie, though, is that like the fights still truly have meaning, like the fights are there, but they all build up the pent-up frustration, I think, that every character has, right? So Quest hopping out of her mobile suit to go into Char's,
Yes.
that, her frustrations are being showcased because she feels like she's not getting the attention she wants, because she is inherently selfish and self-serving, and she wants her new, realistically, what she's looking at as a new father figure. Like, if you were to really psychoanalyze her, she's really looking at Char as a father figure. But
100%.
She's looking at that. She's looking at it through an aspect of affection and of infatuation.
Yeah.
But realistically, she is really wanting and looking at Char and using him from a paternal perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got, Gyun, who's consistently frustrated that he feels like he's just kind of getting pulled in these two directions, and therefore no one's ever really looking at him as a real, like, as somebody to be looked at seriously, as somebody who can really be a leader. And then more importantly, the number one thing that this movie does, outside of, I would say, Char and Amuro's, is that they truly hit the trend that deaths just fucking happen and they move on.
Mm-hmm.
Because like my favorite is like Gyune's death, Amuro shoots him and he just moves on.
Yep. Just on to the next thing.
Like Hathaway obviously reacts to Quest's, right? But that's kind of just that, right? When Sean dies, there's not a whole lot of reaction.
No.
And then the only other one that really happens is, and again, the only one that really reacts to Quest is Hathaway. And then, and so then the big one is just Amuro and Char's, which now with the whole Zegnova thing, as we talked about, that could even be a question technically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly.
So, but then otherwise, overall, I know you mentioned, yes, you really like the movie. I think, honestly, overall, maybe, and this could be because of watching it without watching Zeta, I really hold it to me as kind of a mid thing, kind of what we talked about, right, with G-Quux. When I say mid, I'm not talking about it in the way that most people say it, you know?
Yeah. No, it's more literal.
It's inherently negative, yes. I think, and it's not because of the ending. I actually think the ending is one of the more kind of poetic and like good plot aspects of the movie, actually. Like specifically everything that happens between exclusively Char and Amuro in this movie is great.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. And it's a great interaction because of their shared kind of haunting of Lala. I think what gets me is everything surrounding them. Yes, it's realistic that people don't, especially the governments, don't learn their lesson. That I get. But it's the individual not learning a lesson that gets to me. Mm-hmm. And so like to me, the fact that Amuro was very quickly willing to have both Hathaway and Quest hang around him, despite that he knows he's going in to look for some type of, essentially he's gonna go into conflict, and he knows it, but he brings him along anyway. Despite that, any sensible person would look at the scenario and be like, I wouldn't wish this upon anybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of questionable. Quest herself is constantly questionable. Obviously, like I said, though, she's a teenager, so it makes sense. So I kind of gave it a pass. Mm-hmm. Hathaway, questionable. But again, still a teenager. Gave it a pass. As I mentioned, Bright, maybe I give some questions to on that realm. But again, it's just that realm of like, how through all of this can nobody tell Quest that she's like killed her father, right? That still will always hang with me in this movie. Because she does it, and I don't know if she just didn't think she even killed anybody, right? But it's even that. It's that at no point in Quest's character arc does she even grasp the fact that she's killed anybody. Even if not, even take her father out of the equation. She never kills her father, right? Let's pretend. She never killed her dad. Her dad's alive right now. She still goes through the first number of fights and kills a good number of people. But there's no emotional impact to it. And that, that to me, because unlike when it happened in G-Quux, she should have known that's what she was doing. She's out there in a mobile suit firing weapons. And yet none of that clicks to her. So that's kind of where I was like, it feels kind of like being a sociopath a little bit, with her. And yeah, just like nobody ever wedges the bet that they're like, so when you were talking earlier about like they're trying to speedrun Amuro's trauma, well, the problem is she never faces the trauma.
Yeah.
She never looks at it. She does it, but she doesn't look at the trauma. Mm-hmm. She almost does the trauma, but then kind of looks at it and goes, haha. You know? Haha, that's some funny trauma over there. Yeah. And in a series like Gundam, I feel like that should have been explored. If that's what would have been the redemption or like the redeeming quality of her character, even if she literally did just kind of become a sociopath, right? Or like she is just so obsessed with Char that, you know, like she's able to brush it aside or get over it, right? But something would have been better than nothing. But what we got was nothing. And that to me was a problem. Mm. And I feel like that happens frequently in the movie where it's like we talk a lot about trauma, but we don't learn anything from the trauma. They just go on and be like, all right, so now we're fighting over here now. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I know that kind of happens sometimes in the original series and in many other Gundam series, but, you know, I feel like kind of it's like, all right, well, there's some time in between getting here and there. Let's maybe go over that instead of it just explicitly being, yeah, anyway, let me talk more about how much I'm in love with Char. Or let's just have a conversation between Gyune and Quest and then have it surmount to nothing because she's just going to look at him, scoff, and be like, well, no, Char's into me. Fuck you. Essentially, like, you know, it just felt like there were a lot of points where it was dialogue that didn't feel like it really mattered. And that's, I think, the points that just were missing. And that's kind of why, to me, like, I can see why there's essentially a somewhat legendary aspect to this, but it feels like a bit of a letdown. Mm. You know, just because I feel like there were so many better ways to resolve some things. Not in a way that, like, everyone lived, but in a way just more that where it was like, let's really put some emotional quantitative, like, let's really put some emotion into this. Give me a reason to at all empathize with Hathaway, right? And then if you're going to have Hathaway do that, give me some type of consequence to it, right? Don't just let it be a thing that happens. You know, let Amuro feel it. Have Bright notice that. Like, Sean dies for no reason, essentially. Mm-hmm. Yes, literally, because Hathaway has freaks out, but also just like it surmounts to nothing. She dies and no one cares. She's just out of the movie now.
Yeah.
And it's like, why was she in this movie then in the first place if her death was going to be meaningless, you know? And so that's kind of it's things like that kind of got to me and that kind of stuck with me, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. That's not to say again that it would be like, this is a bad movie or whatever. It's just, I think it ends with more questions than answers.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it's great to watch. It's still interesting to think about, and it's a movie that I think when you watch it though, it's one of those movies that I think by watching it, much like other shows, like very popular Gundam shows, that just by watching it though, it just helps you feel more included in the hobby and the community. Mm-hmm. Because you understand more things about the greater Gundam universe by watching it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important because, you know, we're discussing this decades after it's been released. So What's important about it now is that by watching it, though, you are getting a greater understanding now of the community as well. Why do people maybe care so much about about V Gundam? Why do people care about Suzavi? Why do people care about Jagdoga? Why do people meme about Char and Amuro fighting in the grass?
Speaking of memes.
Yeah.
So, as we've kind of been tracking, as we've gone through the history of Mobile Suit Gundam, there were certain things that I wasn't able to cover in the first episode that have slowly been revealed over time. If you recall, we talked about Minovsky particles, Frau Bao, the Bright Slap, and with Char'S Counterattack, we've also covered having your soul weighed down by gravity.
Yes.
Now, you might be asking yourself, Dylan, at no point in this episode did you bring up Idina Menzel's vocal performance on Defying Gravity. What's up with that? Wouldn't that apply to this? Wouldn't that be the same as wouldn't this be like the moment to do it if we're talking about souls weighed down by gravity? And the answer is no. Because for the people that do know, the answers we seek on why defying gravity is so important, whether Char exists or not, those are answers we're going to find in the future somewhere over the rainbow. But we'll get to that another time.
All right.
For now, this has been our discussion of Mobile Suit Gundam, Char'S Counterattack. We hope you all have enjoyed it. It was obviously a pretty thorough discussion on the themes of the film. Don't hesitate to let us know in the comments if you agree, if you disagree, how you feel about Char's motivations going into this film. How you feel about Quest and Hathaway. And stay tuned, because this is really only the beginning. Despite seemingly being the end for Char and Amuro, there's still a whole lot for us to cover.
Oh, yes. All right. Until then, we will see you next time.
Goodbye, goodbye.